Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofits, where the nerdy passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact is celebrated. Together with your host, Jarrett Ransom, the inspiring stories and game-changing strategies of nonprofit leaders will be explored. Join us to unravel the mysteries of successful fundraising, uncover the secrets to effective advocacy, and nerd out over innovative approaches to solving social challenges. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense discussions with real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and discover or rediscover how to change the world together. Now let's dive in and embrace the power of our nerdy side.
Hey there, friends. You're about to hear from one of my dear friends, Mary Gleason. And I think you'll have some laughter because I own up to having a girl crush on her. And she also shares about how she's been named Woo Woo in an Engineered World, which is in fact the name of her book. So she has a lot of great insight and experience to share. She also talks openly about her own personal health challenges and her burnout of serving in the nonprofit community. I think you're going to like what Mary has to share, and it's also very different than the previous guest in season one. I also want to say shout out of gratitude, immense gratitude to Bloomerang for supporting season one and these amazing conversations that I've had with rock star community leaders. Go ahead and take a listen now with Mary Gleason. Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am so good. I will be honest, I just got back from a lunch with a colleague, and I felt like it was another recording of the podcast because we had a very conversation. It was so nice. So for everyone listening, I am honored, Mary, to have you here. Again, we have Mary Gleason, and I truly have hand selected everyone for season one, including yourself, Mary, because say in episode one, Mary, you had me at woo woo. So tell me about yourself. Tell me what woo woo means. You're also an author. You've been in this nonprofit space for quite some time. So you might be new to some of our listeners. Yeah, tell us about yourself, Mary. And I like to start off with this question, like, what are some of the names you go by? Because we play a lot of roles in life, and I'd love to know what roles and names that you own.
Wow. Well, I have a lot of names that I own. Woo Woo is one of them, the Woo Woo woman over there, which is code for psychic medium and hypnotherapist. I'm mom, I'm grandma, I am wife and neighbor, and I underscore neighbor because my husband and I moved to a completely new area about a year ago, and neighbors have really become our lifeline. And so we're building a community, and that's a cherished title right now. Let's see, retired nonprofit executive manager and consultant. And I think I'm just playing the one to call if you want to have some fun.
I would agree. I love getting your communications. They speak to me like the first time you and I connected, Mary, and I learned about this book, which actually for those of you watching, it's just past her shoulder here, Being Woo Woo in an Engineered World. And that just to me, it spoke volumes because I don't hear that often in our nonprofit community and in our nonprofit sector. But I want to go back to honor this big move because I think moving is a big transition for all of us, regardless of where we are here, where we are in our life. You're currently in Nevada, is that right? Am I remembering?
Yep, I am. Yeah. I'm in Mesquite, about 80 miles north of Vegas, and literally a 2-minute drive from my house, and you're in Arizona, and shortly thereafter you're in southern Utah. So I get to go to all the great places like Zion and Bryce Canyon. So I love it.
You know, I get your newsletter and I see you have an event coming up. I am so tempted to register and just say, I'm making it happen and I'm going to do the road trip because it is worth it. And that is just how much you were speaking to my soul, Mary.
I have more hats that you have evoked, and one of them is caregiver for my mom, long distance. I've been going back and forth quite a bit, but also workshop leader and lifelong student. I will throw
Ooh,
that in there because every time I
I
learn
love that.
more, my workshops get a little richer, a little deeper, a little bit more fun for me, and hopefully more meaningful for my attendees. I love doing them. The one you're talking about coming up is exploring past lives. And that's one of my most popular ones, along with gallery readings, which I actually call a seance now because people love the idea of a seance. So anyway,
Sure. Oh. Well,
and
for those that are like, what is woo woo? What does that mean? And what, tell me about this book. Let's just start, like, what does woo woo mean to you? Because you had opened up
yeah,
saying, like, that's the names, right? That I've gotten. What does that
yeah.
mean?
Well, to me, what it means is that I am dominantly intuitive. And there's, if you look at Myers-Briggs, there's the dominantly five sensor people, which is 75% of the population. And then there's us over here who are dominantly intuitive. And for me, being woo-woo really meant stepping into that fully. And when you have boards and you have executive directors and whatnot saying, show me the data, I learned to be brave enough to say, the data looks great. My gut is on fire. Or I'm getting a massive headache and I feel like you are too. So let's investigate that for a few minutes. And so it's
That's
really honoring the fact that we have two sides of the brain. And
really,
we don't make good decisions if we only listen to one and not the other. And I wouldn't say to somebody who's like, we all know those psychics or intuitive people who are like on Mars half the time. We need both. But so often that intuitive side of us gets labeled something, um, ethereal, that if we can't measure it, touch it, give it heft, then it can't possibly be important. And somebody asked me once, what is it you really do being a psychic? And I said, I listen to the messages that other people tend to ignore. Because I have learned my own health goes right into the dumper when I ignore it. And that's basically the premise of the book, which is, let me tell you what happened after the diagnosis of the 5 stomach ulcers and the fact that I was truly engaged in a nervous breakdown. And it wasn't because I was a victim. It was because I wasn't listening to what my own intuition had been trying to tell me for a long, long time. And nothing happens to us on one level. So Spirit had been trying to get my attention for a long time. I went to the rational side of the brain, and it just didn't work for me for much longer. So when I started to say, when my stomach hurts, that means something, I listened to it. When I start to get a headache, I say, I know now migraines are caused by a resistance to being driven. When I feel a migraine coming on, I now step back and say, what am I doing that I'm not really sure that I even want to be doing? Is there another way for me to handle this? Is there another way for me to get out of this? Whatever it is. So I've learned that my body is such a great indicator, and people call that woo woo. And well, what do you think about when your body's telling you it's time to do things differently?
yeah. Yeah. I'm just sitting here in amazement, truly, Mary. And for, I think most of us would be like, oh, you have a girl crush. And I'm just eating up everything you're saying, holding on to everything. I truly am, and that's intended to be a compliment.
Girl crush. That's
I
okay.
would
I'll take
love,
it. I'll take it.
I would love to know, like, how do you show up in these board meetings and in these C-suite conversations and say these things, right? Like, I have a headache, or I'm feeling the pain here in my body, and I think you might as well. Let's acknowledge this feeling, let's honor this feeling, and let's go a little
Mhm.
deeper into why maybe this is coming up. Because I would love to know, for our listeners, I believe we all have the ability to tap into our intuition. So, like,
Yes.
how did this show up for you in conversations? But moreover, how has it been received?
It's really been a mixed uh, reception. What usually happens is I will say something out loud. I'll just make the bold statement of, I don't know why, but this just isn't settling for me. Can we take a few more minutes before we make a decision? Or, "Hmm, if it's making my stomach hurt, I have to ask myself, is it because this isn't good for me? This is going to take away my personal power, or am I feeling threatened by this decision?" And I have to do the work internally first. And then the second thing, as I said, is to say, this isn't sitting well with me. Can we talk about it a little more? Does anybody else have concerns that we might be moving too fast? So this is some ways that you can just bring it up without calling it woo-woo. And I did a conference presentation once that was like standing room only, and it was about using your intuition in the workplace. And the fun part was it was all CFOs and CEOs. So
Mm.
I had a room of finance people who wanted to know more about intuition, which was really great. And I asked them to put down their pens and just use their body for the next 45 minutes. When I say these things, where do you feel them? What is sitting on your desk that is a repeat problem? Let's walk through your decision-making process and how your intuition shows up for you. And what was really fun was I had them all engaged in an exercise, and then they were sitting there writing things out. And it was like an hour and a half, and they said, "Okay, time for lunch." And the whole place quietly got up and left. And I went, well, that was a big hit. I mean, they just left. I never got to go to lunch that day. I had to fight to go to the bathroom for the rest of the day because people kept pulling me aside going, "Oh my God, yes, I knew we shouldn't have hired that person. Oh my God, this or that." Or my CEO came over to me and he goes, "Oh, this is what you've been trying to tell me." So I even had the CEO of the company sponsoring the thing come over to me and he goes, "I felt my wife slugging me in the arm the whole time you were talking because she kept telling me, you know better, you know better." So people need permission. And so I don't mind if they think I'm just a weirdo. That's okay. That wouldn't be the first time. But I give people permission to speak up when something feels off for them and they can't pinpoint it as a real data point.
That
So
is such a great story. I think that shows up for a lot of us, right? Like, our boards want the charts and the data and the graphs, and they want to see all this thing. And, we also can tap into our gut, our intuition, our whatever feelings to say, this is also some data that I'd like to pull into the
yeah,
conversation.
exactly.
Just burnout earlier, Mary. Would you be willing to share, like, what was your experience with this burnout? Because I'm seeing a lot of burnout in our sector, in our nonprofit
Mhm.
community. I myself have experienced it, and I feel often that I'm on the cusp of burnout, which tells me I've still not healed, taken the time, set the boundaries, right, that I need to
Yeah,
set for myself if I constantly keep coming up to the edge of burnout, right? So, like, I would love your level of comfort, Mary. What was your experience with this? You mentioned ulcers, you mentioned, a lot. And I know
yeah,
this isn't like this isn't new in our community. So
No,
yeah, share with us what that was for you.
I can share with you quite readily what I've learned, which is anytime I hear myself tell myself it's okay, I can handle it. Whoop, stop. What are you trying to power through that maybe you shouldn't be trying to power through? And I just tried to be all things to all people in an impossible situation. And it was a situation where people weren't rooting for me to be successful. It was a nasty, toxic environment, nasty. And I felt that I needed to stick it out because my husband had been unemployed for about a year at that point. And when I got that diagnosis, I just said, no, nope, 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 no more. And I'm done. And I just went home and said to my husband, I quit today. He said, what? We need the benefits. We need all of these things. And I said, I need to not be there anymore. No more. And, you know, the diagnosis for him of my stomach ulcers shocked him because he kind of thought I was a whiner. And I just said, between the tension of your unemployment and my toxic employment was just too much. And he said, okay, we'll figure it out. And guess what? Spirit provides. We figured it out. And I had the time to heal. I worked with an Ayurvedic practitioner, and it was very holistic. She was also a nurse practitioner. And really, that's when my intuition just came flooding in. And I realized I used to live this way all the time. And I too was trying to be successful in more of the engineering, data-driven model than what was true for me. And I made a commitment to myself at that moment that I'm not going to ever do that again. I'm going to try to remain conscious. So it's not like every minute I'm in that mode, but I do build in time to my decision making to say, did I check in with my body? Did I check in with spirit? Did I pull a card? Did I do something to validate for myself about myself that this is a good thing to do? And the other thing I learned is, and I know this isn't original, but no really is a complete sentence. It really is. And just because I can do something doesn't mean I should or that I want to. I mean, how many of us get recruited for boards or committees because we're professional fundraisers? And guess what I don't want to do with my volunteer time?
Right, right. Well, so much of us, I think, you know, we are service-driven people, right? It's servant leadership. We say yes because we want our communities to thrive, but almost at our own detriment. And I speak for myself, right? Because I say yes to too many things, although I am saying no to a lot more. And yes, no, and yes, no. No is a complete sentence. I love that. In fact, I just mentioned that earlier this week too. You mentioned, you know, the card, and I think you had shared earlier, you pulled a card for us today. Is that right?
I did. Yeah, I hope your fundraisers are listening because it's the 9 of Pentacles. Can you see that?
I can see it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a beautiful
Pentacles.
photo.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
No, I just say it's a beautiful photo. So
It
for those
is.
listening, I wonder if you can just, you know, share a little bit about what it looks like.
So it has pentacle shapes, which represent things that are being made manifest or are already manifest in our life. And typically money is the first thing you think of. It can be, you know, whatever is in your life. But the 9 of Pentacles, in this case, we have a woman and there's a bird, and it's like everything she's been wanting is being delivered. It also means things like you're going to make your fundraising goal, or you're already there, or, you know, just, you know, if the only thing better would be 10 of Pentacles, which means you get everything you want. The Nine of Pentacles means you're going to get pretty much everything you want. It's really the badass I'm a success card.
Yes. Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah, and so I like to pull a card every now and then just to say, what does Spirit want me to know? So I just shuffle the deck and I cut the deck as if I were a client and I pick my card and oh, that's interesting.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I recently got a deck. It's from the NAP Ministry, which is a nonprofit, and they are really against the hustle and grind culture. And so they have a deck of cards and affirmations, and they are just beautiful. And it reminds me, that this hustle and grind culture is not the only way to live life. And I think you have spoken to a lot of that with sharing your own personal stories. And I want to say thank you. I also want to ask one of the questions is there's a lot of ways to practice self-care. There's a lot of ways to relax. How do you practice self-care? What do you use to relax, Mary? Like
Mhm.
when many of us in this industry are right on that cusp of burnout, well, one, hopefully we're recognizing it earlier and earlier. But what are some tools that you use and lean into to make sure that you're taking care of yourself?
The first thing that I do is I get really selfish. I mean, really selfish. And I wrote a newsletter about this several months ago. I've never had so many people write in to tell me how terrible that was. And all of them were women. All of them were women. What will people think? How will I get all this done? And I just would write them back saying, I just have to tell you that your son's class party will still be great if you don't have to bake a dozen cupcakes you don't want to bake at 11 o'clock at night. So I get really selfish. That's my first thing. I get super, super picky. And a lot of that goes with no being a complete sentence, or not for me, or not this time, you know? And you don't have to be, a bitch. You can just say, oh, no, can't help, thanks. And you don't need to offer an explanation. So that's my big first thing is, when am I explaining myself that I don't need to? The second thing is I like to sit with my journal and my cup of tea in the morning. I like to sit in the silence for at least 10 minutes, which is sometimes not a big deal. I can sit there for an hour, and other days, 10 minutes is forever. But sitting in the silence to me isn't meditating, it's just being open. And what comes, comes. And sometimes what comes to me is, oh, I remember where I left my watch. And sometimes what comes to me is a complete download from spirit about something I need to be more aware of. And so I love my morning time. It's my time. My husband has learned that if you say good morning to me and you haven't seen that my eyes are closed or I'm writing, could be a big problem for you. Um, that's my time, and it's my selfish time. Um, the other thing is I have a bubble of protection around me. As an empath, it was not uncommon that I'm picking up all kinds of things that don't belong to me and not realizing they're not mine. So I encourage all my clients, get a bubble of protection. And that spans as far as you can be, as big as it can be, under the floor, over the ceiling, whatever. And I fill it with divine white light. And I drizzle gold for divine protection around the outside. This is just what I visualize. And some days I pick a color. It can be any color I want. It can be multiple colors, but it's what makes me happy or makes me feel protected. And honestly, and so then I have an agreement with spirit of what can come through that bubble. And it's either because I have permission to do a reading for you. You're sending me your energy and I've agreed to receive it. Or spirit needs me to deliver a message to somebody nearby, or it's information they want me to have. That is my way of really going through life with good self-care.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that, Mary. I've heard from amazing guests, yourself included, And I love hearing the differences of self-care for everyone, right? Like it's not one recipe of self-care
No.
fits all people. We really need to lean into what works for us. What is that self-care journey for us? Journaling has come up a few times.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate your tools that you use because I knew they were going to be a little different. And I really wanted this wanted to share a variety, right? So that we can
Mhm.
try on new things. We can have that permission to tap into new ways or something that maybe we're curious about. Our time goes so quickly,
Oh
Mary,
no, we're
and
done. We're done. We're
I
done.
know
I don't want to be
we're
done. We need
we
to
don't want
pop,
to be done.
need to pop a cup of tea and keep talking.
Well, I would love to do that with you personally, and for everyone else listening that says, I'm interested in having some tea with Mary as well. Tell us where we can find more about you, how we
Okay.
connect, how we get your book, like all the things. How do
All
we
the
follow
things.
Mary?
So, my website is MaryGleasonConsulting.com, and that's Gleason. And everything is on there. My book, you can book a discovery call with me. My calendar's on there. You can schedule a discovery call with me and just ask me about what I do to see if it's something you'd be interested in. My upcoming workshops, all of those things. And my email, you can find it all at MaryGleasonConsulting.com. My book is also available on Amazon. So
Cool.
that's easy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Mary, yes, I could talk to you for hours, and I do intend to jump in the car one of these events and show up, see you IRL in real life, have this, experience with you. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for shining your bright light into this amazing, beautiful world. And for being your true self, bringing your woo woo into this engineered world. So thank you for joining me, Mary. I really appreciate you sharing your time and your stories.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk with you.
Thank you.
Take care.